slide here. Just a little bit about how lawyers review contracts, how we draft contracts, and then how contracts are enforced. Those three areas we thought we could impart in a short time real quickly here. And that thing that we passed out to you there, those two contracts, a lease and an independent contractor contract. By the way, does anybody know what an independent contractor is? What would be an example of an independent contractor? Yeah.
Maybe like someone that does work for like a company or something like that, like an outside group. Like, so maybe like I know my dad works for ExxonMobil, and they like hire outside of their company to like have people do jobs, so like they're contracted outside of the company. Does that make sense?
Yes, and technically they're not supposed to be employees, and it's a way of getting some service in a sort of project-by-project basis, and so you have to define the terms of that relationship a lot more than an employment relationship, and that's what that contract is all about.
Well, I just want to add to that. I know there's issues up in North Dakota, the fracking up there, and the polluting stuff, that you can't sue the oil companies because they're not the ones building the wells and stuff, but independent contractors who are building them. So it's like a really big issue debate up there right now. So.
Good, very good question. Because actually what we're going to point out to you is that independent contractors are one way of sort of shuffling off the liability for what's going on to those contractors. So that's one part of what we're going to talk about reviewing contracts. So I don't know which one of you guys is coming up here, but just to point out here some common things that we look at in contracts.
Okay, so this is I think a theory that was presented by one of the professors at Berkeley. And she has that, or her theory is that there's 5 common components to every contract that we should, or anybody who's being involved in a contract, whether they're a lawyer or just a business person, should be looking out for. And the first is the money in the contract. So first off, the money is who gets what, how much, when are the payments arranged. So when it comes to like a rental lease, your monthly payment, who are you paying it to, when do you have to pay it by, the late fees. And then there's also the control aspect in every contract, so who gets the decision-making power and in which areas. And then the third factor we look for is the risk. This is probably one of the more important ones. So if something happens in the contract or somebody doesn't fulfill it, who's on the hook? And what are the consequences, and when do they have to be fulfilled? And then there's also standards. So this is how we fill in missing terms. So let's say that your contract says you have to leave your apartment in a clean condition upon the end of the lease. What does clean condition mean? So those are the kinds of standards that we look for. And then there's the beginning and the end game. When does the contract start? When does the contract end? 2 very important parts of any contract. And so you guys have 2 contracts, I believe, in front of you, the contractor agreement and the lease. Do you want to do that right now?
No, I don't think we have enough time, but what we were going to suggest.
Yeah, let me ask a question. Is it possible to arrange a Skype continuation of this when you guys get back to Cal? Is it possible to do that? And let me tell you why. Number one, I looked at your materials. I think they're fantastic. And I think these students would really gain from a full opportunity to have your presentation and engage with you rather than me take it and try to do what I think would be the way you would present it. I think you're presenting it would be important. If we could do that sooner rather than later, that would help them as they're preparing for their midterm, which is going to be heavy emphasis on contracts and IP. And I don't want you to have to rush through. I think you put a lot of time into the preparation of these materials. Can we do that, if not for this Thursday, for next Tuesday or Thursday? Is that a possibility?
I think we could probably do next Tuesday.
Let's do that. Let's do that. Yeah, and that
we can tee it up a little bit here.
The reason why they're going to like it so much is that means that their midterms are going to be postponed until after that. You guys are the popular guys all of a sudden.
Well, let's tee it up a little bit
Good.
here,
Good.
and then you can do a little work.
Excellent.
So what Omar was talking about was, these contracts that you've never seen before. Probably maybe you've seen a lease, maybe you've signed a lease. But if you are a lawyer, you're looking at these new things. You're always getting a contract here or there. Where do you start? You know, gosh, I don't know anything about contracts for disposing of toxic waste or something like that. And so these are some initial things that you might look at any contract and immediately get the stuff that's really important to your client. Okay? So that's one of the first things we wanted to give to you. Second thing was these contract drafting tools, sort of language that we need to have.
And so the four things that we try to use when drafting contracts are representations, warranties, and conditions.
And so we're going to give you a quick little overview of what those four are, and then our idea is to say to you guys, take these now home, mark them up, find what's money, what's control, what's risk, and then where are representations, where are these other things that we're going to give to you, and that we thought would be sort of excellent. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do this part.
Okay, so the first thing that we talked about were representations, warranties. So what is a representation? Does anybody have any idea what a representation might be?
This is sort of legal gobbledygook here, but generally.
It was a contract between the offer and the offer.
Yeah, I mean, a representation could be that. So basically what a representation is just a fact within the contract. So that could definitely be a fact. The contract is between me and somebody else. And then something else you might consider is I'm buying a car and I tell you there's 75,000 miles on the car. That would be a representation on my part that there was 75,000 miles on the car. And then a warranty is like a promise about a representation, maybe you could, or a promise about a fact in the contract. So if there weren't $75,000 or 75,000 miles on the car, there were 95, what would happen if I was proven wrong? Or that or if you took it to a dealer, you took it to a mechanic and he told you and somebody scaled back the numbers, there's really way more miles. So my warranty, it's pretty much like me giving you a warranty that my word is correct. And if I'm wrong, then there will be consequences.
Yes. And the reason I'm going to slow you there, you're doing a great job. It's that last part that separates the difference between a representation and warranty as far as I'm concerned. A representation, a lot of times, doesn't have consequence associated with it, whereas a warranty does. There's a consequence associated with a warranty. You said it was 75,000 miles. It turned out to be 95. Now you got to fix it. Now something has to happen because you warrantied it at that representation that you made. Because the problem with law, and we know this, the problem with law is that the language of law is so fuzzy. They're all promises. They're all, we hear covenants, right? The covenant, a warranty, they're all promises. So how do students who are learning this language for the first time separate this promise from that? They all sound like promises to me, Professor Harris. So you just did it really well right there where you distinguished a warranty from a representation. Let me let you keep going.
And then the next drafting tool we use are covenants. So this is a promise that, covenant is pretty much a promise that something will or won't be done. So you could say, I promise you that if you give me $2,000, I will give you my old car. So that's a promise on my part to carry out the contract. And of course, a covenant comes with conditions. Basically, if I don't do it, or if one of us breaks the contract, then there will be consequences. And there's a right of action for me to either, or me or you to sue for damages or whatever the right of action.
And if you exchange covenants, folks, is that a unilateral or a bilateral contract? By definition, a covenant for a covenant is what?
Bilateral.
Why can't it be a unilateral contract? Because that's a covenant exchange for what? Just test them. Let's keep moving.
So conditions are essentially promises that are built on other promises. This performance has to come first before this person has to perform. So if I was giving you $2,000 for your car, we could have concurrent conditions where I say, here, I'll give you the keys, you give me the money.
Right.
Or it could be, hey, I got to get money from my bank account. Okay, so you're not going to give me the money, or you have to go get the car, and so I say, well, I'll give you the money eventually when you get the car. So conditions place the promises on a time scale, is the idea. So it could be something that has to happen first before somebody performs, or somebody performs and then something happens. Okay? So again, the idea is, let's take some time to look at your contracts that you have now and mark them up, maybe use different colors or something like that. Green for money, red for control or something like that. And then you can get to the meat of them a little bit, and then we can finish up with the rest of the things. What we're going to try and do, just so you know, because I know you have to go with 11:45 here, is the next thing we're going to cover with you is this part here. So we wanted to give you a little sense of how we draft contracts and look at some of the boilerplate that goes with contracts. What you'll see at the end of those contracts that you have is something called boilerplate. And what that means is that every contract has it. It's just sort of put at the end there. And a number of people think of it as sort of the fine print that you have to worry about. But it's actually not so much you have to worry about it, because this is the stuff that everybody agrees upon. You know, that you can't change the contract without a write-in or something like that. So we'll get into that at our next meeting. And then, of course, how contracts are enforced. You know, there's ways to do that privately through arbitration or mediation or things, or through the courts. There's, Superior Court for really expensive contracts, or small claims court. Maybe some of you have been through small claims court? Small claims, anybody? Fun, huh? Blast. Really great. But one thing I'm blast about is that there are no lawyers allowed at small claims court, so that's one. Anyway, this is how much we wanted to cover with you. We wanted to cover with you a lot more, but
We're
unfortunately,
gonna have a
traffic
chance, so
is
we're gonna
terrible.
spend, if you'll allow us to, the whole hour and 15 minutes on, you said a week from Thursday?
Yeah,
A week from Thursday.
no,
we're
week
gonna-
from Tuesday.
A week from Tuesday, we're gonna
Yeah.
spend the whole hour and 15 minutes, 10 o'clock to, well, no, we have an hour and 45. What time do we start? 10:30. 10:30 to
We'll-
11:45.
We'll start whenever you want.
Good.
Probably
No,
do.
we'll start right at the beginning of class. We'll set it up with a Skype. We'll make sure all the logistics are correct. Yes.
Next Tuesday?
A week from
Today.
today. A week from today.
And the only other thing to know is that if you talk to Mark a little bit, if you have some interest in working on some of the small business stuff that we're trying to work on down here, we're glad to have you guys, sort of partner with us or shadow us or do something if you want to learn more about that stuff. So talk to Mark about it.
And let me tell you on that, we have a pre-law society on campus that I'm the faculty advisor to. They're interested. We have Phi Alpha Delta, the pre-law fraternity on campus. Some of those students are. And we have a student-led law clinic that I'd like to talk to you more about, that's 6 years old on campus. All three of those organizations are interested in tying together with what we've been waiting for you guys to come to our campus, man. So we really are glad you're here. Let's give one more round of applause. Now, what this means is no test on Thursday, but that's the good news. The bad news is